Shir Tanya for today, the 29th of Sivan, is on Perek Tes of Shara Yuchad V'Emunah, chapter 9, Shara Yuchad V'Emunah. It's on Daf Pei Vav Amud Aleph. The page number is 326. Next to the last line from the bottom. The Alter Rebbe is saying that God is removed from Chachma infinitely more than Chachma is removed from action, from Asiyah. Why then do we even use Chachma and Asiyah to describe God's distance from Chachma? We're comparing it. We're saying that God is as removed from Chachma as Chachma is from Asiyah, only more so. So why do we compare it at all? It's rak mipnei she'ein b'nevroyim kayach lahasig, because created beings can comprehend only rak ha'ishtalshelus mimadregas chachma, the chain of existence beginning with chachma shehidei shisam, which is the origin of all existence, of all created being, lemadregas asiyah, which is the lowest, hashvela, which is the lowest of the created conditions. So since that is the extent of our comprehension, that's why we say that to God that to God Chachma is equal to Asiyah, as insignificant. Which means to say, not that there's any comparison between God and Chachma as there is between Chachma and Asiyah, but rather what we mean to say is Shehuram v'nisa v'naila, that he is high and exalted and removed, Ilui rav ma'ed ma'ed, with a great and excessive distance, mimadregas ha-Chachma, from the level of Chachma. So we're saying that just as Chachma is removed from action, in the same way God is removed from Chachma, we're saying that Chachma is as far removed from action as we know. It is the greatest distance familiar to us. And in the same way, God is removed from Chachma with the greatest distance. And therefore we can't apply to God anything or any element of Chachma. What does that mean? That afilu b'derech maylo v'ilirav, even in the negative, to say that God is much higher than intelligence is also wrong. Kegain leimar olov, for example, to say of God shehi efshel v'shum nivrel yena v'tachtenim lahasik chachmasi emuhusek. A person were to say that God is so great that nobody can know him, nobody can understand him. That's not saying anything at all. Ki inyan ha'asogo, because the whole notion of comprehension, of understanding, misyaches v'neifel, applies only al dvar chachma v'seichel. Comprehension can be used to describe only wisdom and intelligence. Leimar, so that we can say she'ef shel hasigei ve'ef shel hasigei v'pnei emek hamusag. Concerning an intelligence, a subject, a piece of information, we can say it is understandable or it is not understandable because it's too high and too deep, too complicated. So concerning wisdom, we can measure it and say it is understandable or it is not understandable. So even when we say that something is beyond comprehension, we're still talking about that which is in the realm of intelligence. Otherwise, even to say that it's not comprehensible is inappropriate. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but God, shehu l'mayla min haseichel v'hachachma, who is above the whole realm of intelligence. God is not intelligence; He is infinitely higher than it. Le'shayich klal le'mar bei, it doesn't apply at all, and it is inappropriate to say of Him she'ef shel hasigei mipnei emek hamusag. It is incorrect to say that God can't be understood because He is too deep. Ki eine bebechinas hasaga klal, because he is not in the realm of comprehension at all. And when one says that God is hard to understand or can't be understood, it's as if we say about some chachma, some wisdom, Rama va'amuka, which is very high and deep, to say of that chachma that you can't grasp it, you can't hold it in your hands, it's impalpable, because it is so deep. If one were to say that, anyone who would hear such a statement would laugh at him. Because the sense of touch doesn't apply at all other than alasiya gashmis hanetfeses biyadayim. It is appropriate and relevant only concerning a physical object that is palpable. So you can say if something is too hot or too big or too far, you say you can't touch it. But it is touchable. But to say of a wisdom, to say of a concept that it can't be touched because it's deep, that's senseless. Makes no sense at all. In exactly the same way, relative to God, the level of comprehension, of intelligence, is to God equal ka'asiya gashmis mamish, is as insignificant and inappropriate as physical act. And even the intelligence of the divine intelligence, for example, the intelligence of the angels. So it's not a question of the amount of intelligence or degree of intelligence, even the highest intelligence. And even the level of Chachma itself, the level of Chachma in Atzilus, which is the beginning of all life for all of existence, as it says, that all comes from Chachma, even that Chachma, the Chachma of the world of Atzilus, is totally insignificant and beyond, outside of the realm of what God is. And the fact that God is described as a Chacham in the Torah, we also find in the statements of the sages where they attribute to God attributes of wisdom and Chachma. Hainu, why is that? Mishum shehu mokir ha-Chachma. Not because he is in the realm of Chachma, but because he is the source of Chachma. Shememenu yizbarech nimshach v'netzal muhus madregas Chachma ilo shebelam hatzilus. Because it is from God that the notion, the existence of intelligence of Chachma, the category of Chachma of Atzilus, is derived. Also, when God is described as the compassionate one or the Chosid, he is described in that way, not because he is in those levels, but al shem shehu mokir harachamim v'achsodim, because he is the origin and the source of these things. And the same is true with all the attributes that we attribute to God. It is because they come from him, but not that he is them. And the way and the manner, the nature in which this happens, that from God, who is infinitely removed from these attributes evolve or devolve, how it is and what it is. How is it that from infinite God there are finite attributes, and how is it that even when the finite attribute exists, it is one with God? This is yadua lemaskilim. This is known only to those who are versed in the teachings of Kabbalah. In the Hayom Yom for the 29th of Sivan, the Rebbe writes that a person's Aveda, according to Hasidus, Torah teaches us how to serve God, and that is to get into the habit of seeing Hashgacha Pratis. which means to recognize how God, in His kindness, renews the world and all that is in it at every moment with individual attention to the individual creatures. And this, only this, is the true existence of the created being. It is its life and its sustainer.